During his long watching and waiting, one small thing happened which I shall have to mention because something important came out of it later. A lady called with some grapes for Diggory's mother, and as the dining room door was open, Diggory couldn't help but overhearing Aunt Letty and the lady as they talked in the hall. "What lovely grapes!" came Aunt Letty's voice. "I'm sure if anything could do her good these days it would. But poor dear little Mabel, I'm afraid it would need fruit from the land of the youth to help her now. Nothing in this world would do much." Then they both lowered their voices and said a lot more that they couldn't hear. If he had heard that bit about the land of youth a few days ago, he would have thought Aunt Letty was just talking without meaning anything in particular, the way grown-ups do, and it wouldn't have interested him. He almost thought so now, but suddenly it flashed upon him in his mind that he knew now there were really other worlds, and that he himself had been to one of them. At any rate, there might really be a land of youth somewhere. There might be almost anything. There might be fruit in some other world that could really cure his mother. And, well, you know how it feels to begin hoping for something that you desperately want. You almost fight against the hope because it's too good to be true. You've been disappointed so often before. That is how Diggory felt. But it was no good trying to throttle up this hope. It might, it just might be true. So many odd things had happened already. He had the magic rings. There must be worlds you could get through every pool in the wood. He could hunt them all, and then Mother would be well again. Everything would be all right. He forgot about watching for the witch. His hand had already gone into the pocket where he kept the yellow ring, when all at once he heard the sound of galloping. "Hello, what's that?" thought Diggory. "Fire engine. I wonder what house is on fire. Great Scott, it's coming here. Why, it's her." I needn't tell you who he meant by her. First came the hansom. There was no one in the driver's seat. On the roof, not sitting, but standing on the roof, swaying with a superb balance as it came at full speed round the corner with one wheel in the air, was Jadis, the Queen of Queens, the terror of Charm. Her teeth were bared, her eyes shone like fire, and her long hair stemmed out behind her like a comet's tail. She was flogging the horse without mercy. Its nostrils were wide and red, and its sides were spotted with foam. It galloped madly up to the front door, missing the lamppost by an inch, and then reared up on its hind legs. The hansom crashed into the lamppost and shattered into the several pieces. The witch, with a magnificent jump, had sprung clear just in time and landed on the horse's back. She settled herself astride and leaned forward, whispering things into its ear. They must have been things meant not to quiet it, but to madden it. It was on its hind legs again, and in a moment its neigh was like a scream. It was all hoofs and teeth and eyes tossing around its mane. Only a splendid rider would have stayed on its back. But before Diggory had recovered his breath, a good many other things had begun to happen. A second hansom dashed up close behind the first. Out of it jumped a fat man in a frock coat and a policeman. Then came a third hansom with 2 more policemen in it. After it came about 20 people on bicycles, all ringing bells and letting out cheers and catcalls. Last of all came a crowd of people on foot, all very hot running, but obviously enjoying themselves. Windows shut up in all the houses of the street, and a housemaid or a butler appeared at every foot door. They all wanted to see the fun. Meanwhile, an old gentleman had begun to struggle shakily out of the ruins of the first hansom. Several people rushed forward to help him, but as one pulled him every which way, another one, perhaps he would have got out quite as quickly as his own. Diggory guessed that the old gentleman must be Uncle Andrew, but he couldn't see his face. His tall hat had been bashed down. Diggory rushed out and joined the crowd. That's the woman, cried the fat man, pointing at Jadis. "Do your duty, constable. Hundreds and thousands of pounds worth she's taken out of my shop. Look at the rope and pearls around her neck. That's mine, and she's given me a black eye, too. What's more?" "That she has, governor," said one of the crowd. "And as lovely as a black eye as I'd wish to see. Beautiful work must have been. Ain't she strong? You ought to put a nice raw beefsteak on it, mister. That's what it wants," said a butcher's boy. Now then, said the most important of the policemen, what's all this here? I tell you, began the fat man when somebody else called out, don't let that old cove in the cab get away. Put her up to it. The old gentleman, who was certainly Uncle Andrew, had just succeeded in standing up and rubbing his bruises. Now then, said the policeman, what's all this? Wamful pumphy shump, came Uncle Andrew's voice inside the hat. None of that now, said the policeman sternly. You'll find this is no laughing matter. Take that off, see? This was more easily said than done. But after Uncle Andrew had struggled in vain with the hat for some time, 2 other policemen seized it by the brim and forced it off. Thank you, said Uncle Andrew in a faint voice. Thank you. Dear me, I'm terribly shaken. If someone could get me a small glass of brandy. Now you attend to me, if you please, said the policeman. Are you in charge of that young woman? Look out, called several voices, and the policeman jumped a step backward just in time. The horse had aimed a kick at him, which would probably have killed him. Then the witch wheeled the horse around so that she faced the crowd and its hind legs were on a footpath. She had a long, bright knife in her hand and had been busily cutting the horse free from the wreck of the hansom. All this time, Diggory had been trying to get into a position from which he could touch the witch. This wasn't at all easy because on the nearest side nearest to him, there were too many people. And in order to get around to the other side, he had to pass between the horse's hooves and the railings of the area that surrounded the house, where the Kennerly's house had a basement. If you know anything about horses, and especially if you'd seen what a state that horse was in at the moment, you would realize that there was a ticklish thing to do. Diggory knew lots about horses, but he set his teeth and got ready to make a dash for it as soon as he saw a favorable moment. A red-faced man in a bowler hat had now shouldered his way to the front of the crowd. Hello, policeman, he said. That's my horse that she's sitting on, same as my cow, what she made matchwood of. One at a time, please, said the policeman. But there ain't no time, said the cabbie. I know that horse better than you. 'Tain't an ordinary horse. Its father's officer and charger in the cavalry he was, and if the young woman goes on exciting him, there'll be murder done. Let me get at him. The police was only too glad to have a good reason for standing further away from the horse. The cabbie took a step nearer, looking up at Jadis, and then said in a not unkindly voice, Now, missy, let me get this heed and just get you off. You're a lady, and you don't want all these roughs going for you, do you? You want to go home and have a nice cup of tea and lay down quiet like, and then you'll never feel so much better. At the same time, he stretched out his hand toward the horse's head with the words, Steady, Strawberry, old boy. Steady now. Then, for the first time, the witch spoke. Dog, came her cold, clear voice, ringing loud above the other. Dog, unhand our royal charger. We are the Empress Jadis. It's the end of chapter 7.